Here's Brian Shapiro.
What's up, everybody? A very happy Thursday. It is Pushing the Limits. Thank you so much for joining us. Another very busy news day, as it seems like every day is. You could be watching on the and listening on the FM AM dial, KSHP. Of course, also my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show, the Occupy Democrats Network, the Washington Press Network, TikTok, Twitter, all sorts of different platforms, and we do appreciate you being a part, or at least making our show a part of your day in the most fastest growing shows, certainly in the Valley, and I would argue across the country, and we have a lot to get to today. We got some very special guests joined. If you recall, controversial doctor I had on the show, Dr. Peter McCullough, and that interview went viral. Why? Well, I'd like to think that some of these doctors, they go in their safe space and their right-wing echo chamber shows to sell their books, so on and so forth, but they're not really challenged. And I challenge Dr. Peter McCullough, and of course a lot of his followers will say, oh, Brian, he destroyed you with facts. No, he didn't. But through doing that interview, I've met some very interesting people, and I'm grateful for that. And one of those people is a guy by the name of Steve Kirsch. You can Google him. He's an entrepreneur. He's a guy that's made millions and millions and millions of dollars in his career. And he's also a philanthropist. He's helped a lot of people too. But with helping people, in my opinion, he's also promoted some misinformation about COVID. Now, he would disagree with that. So he's going to come on the show, and I'm going to give him the opportunity to share his thoughts. He's going to be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Steve Kirsch, entrepreneur. We'll be talking a little bit about the vaccines and COVID. Best poker player in the world, as far as I'm concerned, the last 20 years, but also someone who's very in tune with what's going on in the world. He's very active on social media, thoughts on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and many other issues. He's also a big hockey fan. We talk sports, we talk poker, and we talk politics. Real Kid Poker, Danny Negreanu is going to be joining us in hour number 2. So looking forward to that. You know, it's interesting because I'm driving to work today, and rarely do I listen to the radio. I usually will just play stuff off of my phone, and I'll play a bunch of music and stuff just to relax me and stuff like that because I'm a big music guy. But I was listening, sadly, to some right-wing radio earlier today for a few minutes anyway. And the chick who's got blood on her hands, as far as I'm concerned, I just think she's an evil witch. Dana Loesch. I was getting into it with her husband on social media the other day. I called him Dana Loesch's fluffer. If you don't know who Dana Loesch is, she's a syndicated radio host. She used to be the spokesman for the NRA. That's why I say she has blood on her hands. Makes excuses for guns. More guns makes us safer. She's a right-wing buffoon. She is a disgrace. And she goes on the air today, like so many people on the right have been doing the last several weeks, claiming that it's all liberals and it's all Democrats that are pro-Palestine protesters, as if they actually went into the crowd and did a poll and asked these people who they're voting for. By the way, for the record, from what I can see, most of these people will not be voting for Joe Biden. So to say that they're big liberals or Democrats, but yet some of them will be voting for Donald Trump is absurd in itself. We don't know who these people are. Why do I say all these people on January 6th were right-wing MAGA supporters? Well, because those that were prosecuted had their day in court, and prosecutors showed the right-wing fringe groups that they were a part of, and many of the defendants even said themselves that they did it because they were Donald Trump supporters. That's how we know the people on January 6th were on the right and they were Donald Trump supporters, maggots. Or as I like to call them on January 6th, terrorists. While I don't agree with these people across the country that are pro-Palestine rallies that they're holding, I call them anti-Jew rallies. Many of them are anti-Semitic. On the right, they're making the case that these are all liberals and Democrats. Again, these people have no basis in fact. The Dana Loesch's of the world, the Sean Hannitys, the Laura Ingrams, the Mark Levins, they'll make the case as if they had a pollster go out there and ask every single one of these anti-Israel protesters, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? Now, obviously, nobody's done that, but they just make this gross assumption that if you're anti-Israel, you must be a Democrat. No, there are anti-Israel people that are Republicans also, and we have no idea what their political affiliation is, if any. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, I didn't identify as an independent or a Republican or a Democrat. Now, I wouldn't be out there demonstrating at these anti-Israel rallies either. But point being told, a lot of these people aren't even political. A lot of these people aren't even Republicans or Democrats. But yet, if you listen to the right, they'll make it sound like they're all liberals. This is what the left does. Look at all these rallies all across the country. Really? Where's your evidence that all these people are lefties? Where's your evidence? Have you asked them? who they vote for, what party they're affiliated with? Of course they haven't. This is what these right-wing morons do, okay? They're not based in fact when it comes to basically anything and everything that they talk about, including the 2020 election. 7 out of 10 Republicans still think Donald Trump won the 2020 election, which means 7 out of 10 Republicans in this country are absolute morons. Then they'll talk about guns like the Dana Lashes of the world, again, who has blood on her hands, who cares more about making money from the NRA than actually saving lives. And they'll make the case that more guns make us safer when we have more guns than any other country in the world and more gun violence than just about any other country in the world. Again, not based in fact. They'll say Joe Biden has Alzheimer's with no evidence to prove that. Oh, but Brian, he fumbled his words the other day, so that must mean he has Alzheimer's. Okay, doctor. Okay, right-wing doctor. I can play you clip after clip after clip of Donald Trump fumbling over his words. Do you ever hear these same people say that Donald Trump has Alzheimer's? Again, they're not based in fact. They'll make a medical evaluation of Joe Biden because he has a stutter and he's 81 years old and he might fumble his words a little bit. And then they'll say that Dr. Fauci created COVID. Again, no basis in fact. None. Zero. That's what these right-wingers do. Drag queen reading, right? Drag queen reading is the biggest threat to our kids, right? Our kids are being indoctrinated. Really? Where's the evidence of that? I've actually had candidates running for office as Republican, as governor. Somebody by the name of Guy Nora, who came in studio here. He ran for governor as a Republican. And in his advertisement, he said, I'm going to end critical race theory. And I said to him, can you name me one teacher in junior high or high school in this county or in the state that's teaching critical race theory? He couldn't. And then after the interview, he said to me off the air, Brian, the people who work for me in my campaign told me to put that in there. Because that's what these Republicans do. They have no basis in fact. They'll lie about the 2020 election with no evidence. They'll lie about the truth when it comes to guns. They'll lie about Joe Biden's mental state. They all think they're doctors. They'll lie about the vaccine. They'll lie about COVID. And now they're lying about all these demonstrations across the country at universities, making the case that every single one of these people are on the left. Because these people on the right that talk about these things are all liars. And it's no basis in fact. Speaking of no basis in fact, the Supreme Court has been hearing arguments about how Donald Trump should have immunity. It is absurd. Justice Alito is an embarrassment. He doesn't care what the American people think. He only cares what white radical Christians think. And the immunity battle is a joke. You're basically making the case that, well, if you're the president, he has immunity. He can do whatever the hell he wants to do. What does that mean? Put a hit on a political rival? Lie about an election, incite an insurrection, defy a subpoena for a year, destroy evidence? Because that's really what we're talking about here. That's why we're talking about immunity. The president, the former president, does not want to be held accountable for the crimes that I believe he committed. And then I listened to this argument that Justice Jackson, who is a very intelligent lady, I'm glad she's on the Supreme Court, and I want to play this audio for you. Justice Jackson grilling Trump attorney John Sauer, who, by the way, is a complete imbecile. The whole argument in front of the Supreme Court is a joke. But if you're a Justice Alito appointed by George W. Bush, you'll do anything the far right tells you to do. Justice Jackson getting into it with John Sauer earlier today about the whole idea of how former President Donald Trump should have immunity. It's interesting, right? I thought this was the law and order party. Isn't this the law and order party? Isn't that what Republicans would lead you to believe? It's the law and order party, right? Wrong. Listen to Donald Trump's defense attorney and Justice Jackson go at it earlier today.
We're talking about criminal liability. I don't understand how the president stands in any different position with respect to the need to follow the law as he is doing his job than anyone else.
He is required to follow the law. And what
but he's not if there's no criminal prosecution. If there's no threat of criminal prosecution, what prevents the president from just doing whatever he wants?
All the structure.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Did you hear what Justice Jackson just said? So Trump's attorney says, oh, no, the president has to abide by the law. Why does the president have to abide by the law if there's going to be no repercussions? It's such a stupid argument by the Trump defense team. That would be like me saying, you can't rob a bank. It's against the law. But if you do rob a bank, we can't go after you criminally. Heck, we can't even follow you or try to catch you. That's exactly what Trump's attorneys are making the case of. Well, Donald Trump has to abide by the law, but he's also going to have immunity.
Prevents the president from just doing whatever he wants.
All the structural checks that are identified in Fitzgerald and a whole series of this court's cases that go back to Martin against Mott, for example, impeachment, oversight by Congress, public oversight. There's a long series that Fitzgerald directly addresses this in the civil context, and we think
I'm not sure.
naturally important.
I'm not sure that's much of a backstop. And what I'm, I guess, more worried about. You seem to be worried about the president being chilled. I think that we would have a really significant opposite problem if the president wasn't chilled. If someone with those kinds of powers, the most powerful person in the world, with the greatest amount of authority, could go into office knowing that there would be no potential penalty for committing crimes. I'm trying to understand what the disincentive is from turning the Oval Office into, the seat of criminal activity in this country.
I mean, she makes the point very clear. Think about that. Think about what the MAGA supporters are saying. Think about what Donald Trump's attorney here, John Sauer, is saying. Justice Jackson is 150% correct. And Justice Alito and Kavanaugh are despicable, and they should be ashamed of themselves. They are basically, or at least Trump's attorney right now, is basically saying there's going to be no consequences, no matter what the president does when he's in office. He can go into office knowing that it doesn't matter what laws that he breaks. There will be no repercussions. You are saying that the president is above the law. The law and order party in this country is saying the president is above the law. That's exactly what this is about. Let's get through the red tape. Donald Trump defied a subpoena for a year. He's facing 91 felony counts when you include the hush money case. 91 felony counts. And that doesn't matter to MAGA Republicans. It doesn't matter to those who call themselves the law and order party. This whole idea of immunity is an embarrassment. It's a joke. Justice Alito is an embarrassment to the Supreme Court. He's an embarrassment to this country. He's an embarrassment to the Bush administration. Brett Kavanaugh is another one. Justice Alito suggesting that if former presidents are subject to prosecution after leaving office, they'll be more likely to seek unlawfully remaining in office after they were defeated for re-election and their term has ended. Kavanaugh, Alito, and Gorsuch have also said they don't want to talk about the Trump case. They just want to talk about the principles in the case. And to me, this is another way of saying they want to rule for Trump while saying it's just about the principles. And Alito is trying to turn things, and he's saying, to encourage peaceful transition of power, you need to give incumbents absolute immunity, which is, by the way, is completely absurd, so that they'll leave and won't worry about prosecution later. I mean, if someone in law school made this argument in a class, they'd be thrown out of the university. It's the most insane thing that I've heard in a while, and I've heard a lot of crazy things lately. Trust me on that. This is ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd. Here's the end of this Justice Jackson situation when it comes to Donald Trump's defense attorney, John Sauer.
I don't think there's any allegation of that in this case. And what George Washington said is, what Benjamin Franklin said is, we view the prosecution of a chief executive as something that everybody cried out against as unconstitutional. And what George Washington said is, we're worried about factional strife, which will.
No, so let me put this worry on the table. If the potential for criminal liability is taken off the table, wouldn't there be a significant risk that future presidents would be emboldened to commit crimes with abandon while they're in office? It's right now the fact that we're having this debate because OLC has said that presidents might be prosecuted. Presidents from the beginning of time have understood that that's a possibility. That might be what has kept this office from turning into the kind of crime center that I'm envisioning. But once we say no criminal liability, Mr. President, you can do whatever you want, I'm worried that we would have a worse problem than the problem of the president feeling constrained to follow the law while he's in office.
I respectfully disagree with that because the regime you've described is the regime we've operated under for 234 years. There has not been an expectation based on 234 years of unbroken political.
All right, let me ask you another.
So it goes on. You get the gist of it. Justice Jackson is 150% correct. It's absolutely absurd. We haven't had this for 234 years. Did we have a president? Did we have an insurrection on January 6th? We've had in prior administrations, at least in my lifetime. Have we had a president facing 91 felony counts? Imagine how many felonies that Donald Trump may have broken if he knew that he would have full and complete immunity. That's what Justice Jackson is saying. Knowing that there could be repercussions, Donald Trump is facing 91 felony counts. How many would he be facing possibly, or how many would he have possibly broken if he thought he had immunity? 900? 9,000? I mean, this is completely and utterly ridiculous. And speaking of the law, an Arizona grand jury has indicted 18 allies of Donald Trump for their efforts to subvert the 2020 election, including White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and attorneys Rudy Giuliani and Boris Epshteyn. Donald Trump is an unindicted co-conspirator. This is a fake electorate scheme, the same type of fake electorate scheme that we had here in the state of Nevada and in other states across the country, where at least 5 people have been indicted here. And we're going to have the Nevada Attorney General in studio talking about this in a few weeks. The names of these 7 defendants, including Meadows, Giuliani, and Epshteyn, are redacted, but the document makes clear who they are by describing their roles. Others include attorneys John Eastman, Jenna Ellis, and Christina Bobb, as well as Trump 2020 campaign operative Mike Roman. Make no mistake about it. This was a fake electorate scheme to try to overturn the outcome of a free and fair election in 2020. This was at the realm and at the directives of one Donald Trump. But while all this happened yesterday, and this Arizona grand jury indicted these 18 allies of Donald Trump, we're now hearing in the Supreme Court, the fact that they're even listening to this is absurd. One of Donald Trump's attorneys, John Sauer, asking for immunity, that Donald Trump should have immunity. So I guess, according to John Sauer and many of the MAGA Republicans in this country today, they think it's okay to put forth a fake electorate scheme and there be no repercussions for somebody like a Donald Trump. This is ridiculous. And I've had it. It's ridiculous. And I'll take a few phone calls at 702-221-7283. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283. Just the idea alone that a president should have immunity, that the president is above the law, is absolutely freaking absurd. And while all this is going on, and while it's being argued in front of the Supreme Court, in front of idiots like Justice Alito and Brett Kavanaugh, you have all these people that have been indicted. All of them. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. And again, that number, if you would like to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283 is the number to call. All right, let's get right to the phone calls, and let's start off with Mark. Mark, thanks for calling in. How are you doing?
Oh, my God. Hold on now. Let me get this out. This is a 20-year U.S. Army combat medic, Mark from Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. If you guys have not listened to the entire tape of what went on in the Supreme Court today, you are missing out on the fact that when this decision comes down, this is the end of democracy in the United States. Yes. It's not the beginning of the end. It is the end of democracy.
Amen. I agree.
We will now have a king.
What times are we living in where the Supreme Court is
We're living in MAGA times.
The Supreme Court, I agree. The Supreme Court is actually listening to one of Donald Trump's attorneys make the case that a president should have full immunity. What type
against killing his opponent?
Are we in a dictatorship?
Against stealing documents?
Yeah.
Against anything he wants to do. But listen to this. 2 more things I need to get out. Yesterday, the Supreme Court sided with Texas. Listen to this. With Texas, that anybody under the age of 65, anybody, they are not allowed to vote by mail unless they have a valid reason set up by Texas. That is now law.
Yeah.
Second thing, the last thing I'd like to come out with, that I listened today to a former Florida Democrat prosecutor for the state of Florida in the Southern District. And his name is Dave Arenberger.
Yeah.
And he stated that this trial that's going on in New York is a fraud. And he is angry and upset. Alan Bragg knows that these 31 misdemeanors will probably stick, but the felony is going to be tossed in the appellate courts. Yeah. And here's the reason why. In order to get a felony charge on Trump in New York State Court, they had to combine 2 misdemeanor counts to upgrade it to a felony.
Right.
And here's the problem. To upgrade it to a felony, it is the falsification of business records, which is the misdemeanor, but also New York law section 17152, conspiracy to promote or prevent elections to a public office, right, shall be guilty of a misdemeanor in New York State. But they're combining the two to elevate it to a federal law. But here's the issue. New York State cannot charge anyone with a federal law.
Right. Right.
That's the problem.
Well, I'm going to tell you something.
The jury can convict.
I know.
The jury can convict.
No, I get that.
To the appellate court, they are to overturn it.
Right. No, I totally understand. And mark my words on this one. This is my personal opinion on this. And you make some good points there. Mark, Donald Trump's going to be convicted of at least one felony in this case. Mark my words on that one. I don't know which ones, but the evidence is overwhelming, and you make some great points, and I appreciate your phone call. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Nancy. Nancy is next up on Pushing the Limits. Hi, Nancy.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for calling in, Nancy. What's on your mind?
Well, I personally know Trump from my former job.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. If you knew what happened, you would understand.
Yeah.
But anyways, comes down to it is if these idiots in the Supreme Court that he stacked
right
allow him to have any kind of immunity, then that means carte blanche across everyone, including Biden right now.
That's right.
And then Biden has a little over a year or a little less than a year to start wiping everything out.
You know what's funny, though, about that, Nancy?
Everybody should have it, which is absolutely ridiculous.
I agree.
That this is even being brought up.
I agree. So, Nancy, you know what's even more interesting? The same people that say President Trump should have immunity are also the same people that want Joe Biden investigated with no evidence of any criminality at all. So even if they
look, you're looking at Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh God, don't even start with her.
For God's sake, that thing, she's not even a human being anymore at this point.
Oh my God, even the Republicans hate her. Even the Republicans hate her. I mean that goes to show you.
I know.
When you have somebody like Mike Johnson who hates you, that goes without saying. I mean, Mike Johnson can't even hates her, and McCarthy can't say. I mean, some of the most despicable Republicans hate Marjorie Taylor Greene. That puts Marjorie Taylor Greene above them, Nancy. And I appreciate your call. And I'm sorry you had to work with Donald Trump. That had to be horrible. But I appreciate.
It was.
I appreciate you calling in, Nancy. God bless you. Appreciate your call. Thank you so much. Thank you. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Julian. Hi, Julian. What's going on, man?
Hey, how are you doing today, Brian?
Good. What's on your mind, Julian?
So I kind of want to tie in terms of like with what's happening with all of these cases with actually an interview you had a couple of days ago with Carmine, and something that a little line he said that I really picked up on, which was he said that Michael Cohen should be also in this indictment that Trump is in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is so indicative of the Republican Party. So either Carmine is ignorant to the facts because Michael Cohen was convicted based on the underlying crime. Like, that's what he went to jail for, which was the payoff.
Right.
And Donald Trump was a co-conspirator. So either Carmine was ignorant to the facts or he knows them and is intentionally misrepresenting them. So either he's ignorant or a complete partisan hack. And I think that that's representative of a lot of the Republican Party in this day and age. Either they just simply don't know the information and are being relied on ignorance, or they do and don't care because they want what they want politically, and they're willing to sacrifice everything, including democracy, to go for it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. And when you use the term democracy, I truly believe that many MAGA Republicans out there, as long as their guy Donald Trump is elected in November, they could care less about democracy, and they'd be okay with Donald Trump staying in office until the day he dies. So the word democracy should never be used within the Republican Party. The word honesty shouldn't be used. The word criminal shouldn't be used. And you're absolutely right, Julian. I got to move on, but I appreciate your call, my friend. Thank you so much. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. And in 90 seconds, we're going to come back, and Stephen Kirsch is going to be our very special guest. American entrepreneur, certainly philanthropic supporter of medical research, but we're going to get into COVID vaccines. What do you consider, information and misinformation? Stephen's our special guest. He's going to be joining us next. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran, veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. Do you know no veteran has served on the commission in nearly 30 years, which is why our veteran homelessness, unemployment, and suicide rates are out of control. So here's the call to action. June 11th, vote veteran, vote Kane for Clark County. Let's rally behind someone who's been in the trenches, who knows the sacrifices, and who's committed to making a real difference. Join the campaign by searching Elect Hunter Kane on social media, or go to www.electhunterkane.com.
Did you know that 99% of air conditioning issues start with airflow issues? Well, guess what? Pioneer Air has your back. They've been operating for 20 years in the industry within the Las Vegas area, large enough to handle all your air conditioning and heating needs, but small enough to know your first name. Pioneer Air focuses on preventative care, much like wellness checks for humans. They believe in wellness checks for air conditioning and heating systems to extend the life of the system you own. So what are you waiting for? Schedule your wellness check with Pioneer Air today. The number to call is 702-831-4840. Here's the best news. Mention this ad and you'll receive 10% off. Call Pioneer Air today. 702-831-4840. That number again, 702-831-4840.
Voters want safe gun reform, ban military assault weapons, including AR-15s, have universal background checks, and red flag laws. I am Eva Chase, a candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 16, U.S. Air Force veteran, college graduate, progressive independent candidate, fully transitioned transgender woman. former lieutenant governor candidate for Nevada in 2022, where I received 7,212 votes in the Democratic primary. Follow me on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. Donate to my campaign bot fund account and stay progressive.
Residents of Las Vegas Ward 5, are you ready for a brighter future? I would like to introduce myself, Dr. Erica Smith, your people's choice for City Council. With a vision for progress and the fortitude to make it happen, I am committed to moving us forward. I am not just a candidate, I am a fighter for you. With myself on the City Council, you can expect a real change and a community that thrives. Vote for Dr. Erica Smith, because together we're building a better tomorrow. To learn more about me and my campaign, go to www.ericaforlasvegas.com, paid for by the Vote Dr. Smith Committee.
Please remember to thank all our healthcare professionals, law enforcement, first responders, and military for their protective services. This message is courtesy of Vito's Tacos, proudly serving our area the most delicious food. For a great meal, stop by 7380 Southeastern Avenue in Las Vegas or call 702-800-0955. That's 702-800-0955. That's Vito's Tacos on the air, thanking our first responders for all that they do.
It's time to wake up and win the weekend. You're listening to the boss of the big ball. JP the Cat, giving you that grease. Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time for the live action on Vegas Scoreboard Express on KSHP 107.1 FM and AM 1400. Dive into the game day with my in-depth analysis, expert predictions, and winning plays from the sharpest minds in sports betting. It's more than just placing bets. It's about securing wins. Head over to jptheticket.com and be sure to tune in to KSHP this weekend from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time to ride the winning wave with VSX. Tune in and get your money back from the sports book. All money, all sports, no bull.
Missed the live show? Subscribe to Vegas Scoreboard Express on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcast and radio listening.
All right, welcome back to Pushing the Limits. Quick programming note for you, and this is not my doing. It's completely ridiculous, but apparently some of our social media platforms are giving us a strike if we talk about vaccines and COVID. It's completely and utterly ridiculous. We're still gonna have our special guest on in about a minute or two, but we have to. I know this sounds ridiculous to all the listeners, but this is what I just found out. If we talk about vaccines and COVID on some of our social media platforms, it's going to be taken down. So what we need to do right now, and I'm explaining this to all of our listeners, is we're going to start a new feed. We are going to take some of this interview off on certain specific media platforms, but it'll be on others, if that makes sense. So give us another couple minutes here. We're going to be right back. Steve, I know you're hanging on. Give us another minute or two here. And Stephen, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize, Stephen. Unfortunately, we're going to have to start a new feed that we're going to send you because on some of our social media platforms, I just found out, we're going to get another strike if we talk about vaccines and COVID, which is absurd, but we're going to do that. So, Stephen, I apologize. Just sit tight for another couple minutes, and we'll get this interview going. Sound good?
Sure. How are you going to send me the new link?
Yes, I will, my friend. I'll text it right over to you here momentarily, okay?
Okay.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for your patience. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Stephen after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
At Safe Steps Academy, we're on a relentless mission. We're not just teaching CPR, we're igniting a movement, spreading the gospel of preparedness far and wide. Our focus is clear: to empower everyday people with the knowledge and confidence to act in an emergency.